I smoothed my dress for the 100th time, scrutinizing my reflection in the full-length mirror. The ivory silk clung to my curves, a perfect fit for tomorrow's wedding. My wedding. A soft knock at the door startled me from my reverie. "Come in," I called, expecting my maid of honor with a last-minute checklist. The door creaked open, and my heart sank. It wasn't best friend, but my younger half-sister, Lydia. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her normally perfect makeup smudged. "Grace," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk." I steeled myself, plastering on a smile. "Lydia, what a surprise. I thought you weren't coming until tomorrow." She stepped into the room, wringing her hands. "I couldn't wait. There's something you need to know." A chill ran down my spine. "What is it?" Lydia took a deep breath. "It's about Trevor." My fiancé's name on her lips sent warning bells ringing in my head. "What about Trevor?" "We've been seeing each other," she said, her eyes fixed on the floor. "For over a year now." The room spun. I gripped the edge of my vanity to steady myself. "You're lying," I spat. "This is my wedding we're talking about." Lydia's head snapped up, her eyes flashing. "I wish I was lying, Grace, but it's true. Ask him yourself." I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking as I dialed Trevor's number. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, beautiful. Getting cold feet?" His voice was light, teasing. "Trevor," I said, my voice tight. "Is it true? Have you been seeing Lydia?" The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When he finally spoke, his words were careful, measured. "Grace, I can explain. It's not what you think." I ended the call, my vision blurring with unshed tears. Lydia stood there watching me, her expression a mix of guilt and something else. Triumph? "Why?" I choked out. "Why would you do this to me?" Lydia's face crumpled. "I'm sorry, Grace. I never meant for it to happen. It just did." I laughed bitterly. "Things don't just happen, Lydia. You made a choice. Both of you did." She reached out to touch my arm, but I jerked away. "Don't," I warned. "Don't you dare try to comfort me." A knock at the door interrupted us. My mother's voice drifted through the wood. "Grace? Lydia? Is everything all right in there?" I wiped my eyes hastily, clearing my throat. "Everything's fine, Mom. We'll be out in a minute." Lydia's eyes widened. "You're not going to tell her?" I fixed her with a steely gaze. "Oh, I'm going to tell her. I'm going to tell everyone, but first I need to deal with Trevor." I strode to the door, yanking it open. My mother stood there, concern etched on her face. "Grace, what's wrong?" I brushed past her, my mind set on one goal. "The wedding's off," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I need to see Trevor." As I marched down the hallway, I heard Lydia's frantic whispers to our mother, followed by a gasp of shock. But I didn't look back. My world was crumbling around me, but I'd be damned if I'd let them see me fall apart. I burst into Trevor's study without knocking. He looked up from his desk, surprise quickly replaced by guilt on his handsome face. "Grace," he started, rising to his feet. "Let me explain." I held up a hand, silencing him. "Save it, Trevor. I don't want to hear your excuses." He moved around the desk, reaching for me. "It was just a fling, Grace. It doesn't mean anything." I stepped back, my anger rising. "A fling? With my sister? For over a year?" I shook my head in disbelief. "You've turned our entire relationship into a lie." Trevor's face hardened. "Don't be dramatic, Grace. These things happen. We can work through this." I slipped the engagement ring off my finger, tossing it onto his desk. "No, Trevor. We can't. It's over." As I turned to leave, he grabbed my arm. "Think about what you're doing, Grace. Think about the scandal, the gossip. Is that what you want?" I wrenched my arm free, fixing him with a glare that could freeze hell itself. "What I want," I said slowly, "is for you to go to hell." With that, I walked out, slamming the door behind me. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, my legs suddenly weak. The weight of what had just happened crashed over me like a tidal wave. My wedding was off. My fiancé had betrayed me. My sister had betrayed me. And tomorrow I'd have to face a house full of guests, all expecting a joyous celebration. I straightened up, squaring my shoulders. I was Grace Granger, and I'd be damned if I'd let them see me broken. As I walked back to my room, one thought burned in my mind. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I spent the night pacing my room, my mind a whirlwind of anger and betrayal. As dawn broke, I knew I couldn't face the arriving guests or deal with canceling the wedding alone. I needed backup. With trembling hands, I dialed Peter's number. My old colleague and friend answered on the third ring, his voice groggy with sleep. "Grace, what's wrong?" "Peter, I need your help." The wedding's off. Trevor's been cheating on me with Lydia. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. I'll be there in 20 minutes. True to his word, Peter arrived just as I finished throwing some clothes into a suitcase. His familiar face, etched with concern, was a welcome sight. What do you need me to do? He asked, no preamble necessary. Help me face the music, I said, squaring my shoulders. We need to tell the guests and cancel everything. As we descended the stairs, my mother's shrill voice echoed from the living room. Grace Elizabeth Granger! You get down here this instant! I exchanged a glance with Peter before stepping into the lion's den. Mom stood in the center of the room, her face a mask of fury. Trevor lounged on the sofa, looking more annoyed than remorseful. Lydia huddled in a corner, eyes red and puffy. What is the meaning of this? Mom demanded. Trevor tells me you're calling off the wedding. Have you lost your mind? I felt Peter's steadying presence behind me as I faced my mother. No, Mom. I've finally come to my senses. The wedding's off because Trevor's been cheating on me with Lydia for over a year. Mom's face paled, her gaze darting between Trevor and Lydia. Is this true? Trevor stood, straightening his jacket. Now, Beverly, let's not blow this out of proportion. It was just a little indiscretion, hardly worth canceling a wedding over. I couldn't believe my ears. A little indiscretion? You've been sleeping with my sister. Half-sister, Lydia mumbled, earning glares from everyone in the room. Mom turned on Lydia, her voice ice-cold. You. How could you do this to your sister? Oh, spare me the righteous indignation, Mom, I snapped. You're more worried about the scandal than my feelings. That's not true, Mom protested, but her eyes betrayed her. Trevor stepped towards me, his charm cranked up to 11. Grace, darling, let's talk about this rationally. Think about all we've invested in this wedding and our future. We can work through this. I felt my resolve wavering for a moment, years of conditioning kicking in. Then I felt Peter's hand on my shoulder, grounding me. No, Trevor, I said firmly. We can't. It's over. Trevor's face darkened. You're making a big mistake, Grace. Think about your career, your reputation. Do you really want to be known as the jilted bride? Better that than the fool who married a cheater, I retorted. Lydia suddenly sprang to life, rushing towards me. Grace, please, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. You have to believe me. I stepped back, bumping into Peter. Don't touch me, Lydia. You're dead to me. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Mom looked between us, her face a mix of shock and disappointment. What are we going to tell people? She finally asked. I turned to Peter. That's where you come in. Can you help me notify the guests and cancel the arrangements? He nodded, squeezing my shoulder. Of course, whatever you need. As Peter and I turned to leave, Trevor called out, Grace, don't do this. You're throwing away everything we've built. I paused at the doorway, looking back at the wreckage of my life. My cheating fiancé, my traitorous sister, my image-obsessed mother. In that moment, I knew I needed to escape, to find myself again. No, Trevor, I said quietly. I'm finally building something real, a life without lies. With that, I walked out, Peter by my side, leaving behind the shattered remains of my old life. As we stepped into the sunlight, I took a deep breath, feeling a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. Where to now? Peter asked gently. I thought for a moment, then made a decision that would change everything. Take me to my childhood home. It's time I faced some old ghosts. The drive to my childhood home was silent, the weight of recent events hanging heavy between Peter and me. As we pulled up to the weathered Victorian house, my stomach churned with a mix of dread and nostalgia. You sure about this, Grace? Peter asked, concern etching his features. I nodded, steeling myself. I need to face this head-on. The front door creaked open before we reached it, revealing my mother, Beverly Quinn, looking as formidable as ever in her tailored suit. Well, well, she drawled, eyeing us critically. The prodigal daughter returns. I bit back a retort, reminding myself why I was here. Hello, Mom. Can we talk? She stepped aside, gesturing us in with a wave of her perfectly manicured hand. The house smelled the same, a mix of lemon polish and stale perfume that instantly transported me back to my tumultuous teenage years. We settled in the living room, the tension palpable. Peter excused himself to make coffee, leaving me alone with my mother. So, Beverly began, her voice dripping with sarcasm, I hear congratulations are in order. You've managed to spectacularly implode your wedding and your relationship in one fell swoop. I clenched my fists, fighting to keep my voice steady. I didn't come here for your judgment, Mom. I came because I need. What? She pressed, leaning forward. What could you possibly need from me after all these years? The words stuck in my throat, but I forced them out. Advice. How did you do it? How did you move on after Dad's betrayal? Beverly's eyes widened, genuine surprise replacing her usual mask of disdain. For a moment I saw a flicker of the woman she used to be, before bitterness and resentment had taken hold. Oh, Grace, she sighed, her shoulders sagging. I didn't. I never moved on. I let it consume me, define me, and look where that got us. Her unexpected honesty caught me off guard. But you seemed so strong, so unaffected. She laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. That was the greatest lie of all. I was broken, and instead of putting myself back together, I let the broken pieces cut everyone around me, especially you and Lydia. As if summoned by her name, the front door burst open, and Lydia stormed in, her face a storm of emotions. How dare you run away like that? She shouted, ignoring our mother completely. We weren't finished talking. I stood, anger flaring anew. There's nothing left to say, Lydia. You made your choice. Girls, please, Beverly interjected, but we both ignored her. Lydia advanced, her voice rising. You always do this. Run away when things get tough. You ran from Dad, you ran from Mom, and now you're running from me and Trevor? I'm not running, I shot back. I'm finally standing my ground. Enough! Beverly's voice cracked like a whip, silencing us both. It looks like history is repeating itself, dear. The same old patterns, the same old pain. I turned to her, fury building. I'm nothing like you, Mom. I won't let this define me. Beverly's eyes softened, surprising me again. Good. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. Lydia scoffed, drawing our attention back to her. Oh, please. You're more like her than you know, Grace. Always playing the victim. Always thinking you're better than everyone else. That's rich coming from you, I spat. You've spent your entire life trying to tear me down out of jealousy. Jealousy? Lydia laughed bitterly. You have no idea what I've been through, what I've had to do to survive in this family. Then enlighten me, I challenged, stepping closer. What could possibly justify betraying your own sister? Lydia's face contorted, a mix of pain and rage. You want the truth? Fine. I slept with Trevor because I wanted to hurt you. I wanted you to feel just a fraction of the pain I've felt living in your shadow all these years. Her words hit me like a physical blow, leaving me breathless. In that moment, I saw the depth of her resentment, the years of pent-up anger and hurt. Beverly stood, moving between us. It looks like we all have some hard truths to face. The question is, are we brave enough to do it? As I looked from my mother to my sister, I realized this was just the beginning. The real battle was yet to come, and it would either tear us apart forever or forge a new, stronger bond. I'm ready, I said, my voice steady. Let's lay it all out on the table. No more lies, no more secrets. Lydia's eyes narrowed, a challenge in her gaze. Be careful what you wish for, sister dear. You might not like what you hear. The tension in the room was suffocating as Lydia, Mom, and I faced each other, years of unspoken resentment hanging between us. Peter had wisely retreated to the kitchen, leaving us to our family drama. You want the truth? Lydia spat, her eyes blazing. Fine. I'm here because I need money. The inheritance Dad left me is gone, and I'm drowning in debt. I felt a surge of bitter satisfaction. So sleeping with Trevor wasn't just about hurting me. You were after his money, too. Lydia's face flushed with anger. Don't you dare judge me. You have no idea what it's like to struggle while watching your perfect sister sail through life. Girls, please, Mom interjected, but we ignored her. Struggle? I laughed incredulously. You've had every advantage, Lydia. What could you possibly be struggling with? Lydia's eyes darted to Mom, then back to me. You really want to know? I've been paying for Mom's medical treatments for the past year. Treatments she's been hiding from you. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I turned to Mom, searching her face for confirmation. What treatments? What is she talking about? Mom sank into her chair, suddenly looking every bit her 60 years. I didn't want to worry you, Grace. You were so busy with your career and the wedding. I'm your daughter, I cried, feeling the sting of betrayal anew. How could you keep this from me? Because she knew you'd try to fix everything like always, Lydia sneered. Saint Grace to the rescue. I whirled on her. And you? You've been paying for her treatments? With what money? Lydia's defiant expression crumbled. I may have borrowed against the house. Dad's house. The implications hit me like a freight train. Our childhood home, the only tangible connection we had left to our father, was at risk because of Lydia's actions. You what? I breathed, struggling to process this new betrayal. I had no choice, Lydia shouted, tears streaming down her face. Mom needed the treatments, and you were too caught up in your perfect life to notice anything was wrong. I felt like I was drowning, overwhelmed by the cascade of revelations. Why didn't either of you come to me? I could have helped. Because we didn't want to be another burden on your shoulders, Mom said softly. You've always carried so much, Grace. We thought we could handle this on our own. The irony of their misguided attempt to protect me wasn't lost on me. All these years, I'd been maintaining a facade of perfection, thinking it would somehow shield my family from pain. Instead, it had driven us further apart. So what now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The treatments, the house, what are we going to do? Lydia laughed bitterly. That's why I came clean about Trevor. I thought if I ruined your wedding, you'd be so angry you'd pay me off to leave you alone. I could use that money to save the house. The calculated cruelty of her plan stunned me into silence. This was my sister, my flesh and blood, admitting she'd deliberately set out to destroy my happiness for financial gain. Oh, Lydia, Mom sighed, shaking her head. What have we become? I stood up abruptly, needing space to think. I need some air. As I headed for the door, Lydia called out, her voice tinged with desperation. Grace, wait! I'm sorry. I know it was wrong, but I didn't know what else to do. Please, help us. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. The weight of their expectations, their needs pressed down on me. Part of me wanted to run, to leave this mess behind and start fresh somewhere new. But another part, the part that had always felt responsible for holding this family together, wouldn't let me walk away. I turned back, meeting their anxious gazes. I'll help, I said slowly, but on my terms. No more lies, no more secrets. We deal with this together, as a family, or not at all. The relief on their faces was palpable, but I felt no satisfaction. As I stepped outside, drawing in a deep breath of cool air, I knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Saving our childhood home, dealing with Mom's illness, confronting the web of lies we'd all woven, it would take every ounce of strength I had. But as I stood there, watching the sun set over the neighborhood where I'd grown up, I made a silent vow. I would find a way through this mess, not just for my family, but for myself. It was time to rewrite our story, to break the cycle of betrayal and resentment that had defined us for too long. With renewed determination, I turned back to the house, ready to face whatever came next. The storm was far from over, but for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope that we might weather it together. The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose. I'd promised to help my family, but I needed answers first. While Mom and Lydia slept, I slipped into Dad's old study, a room that had remained largely untouched since his death. The musty smell of old books and leather enveloped me as I entered. I ran my fingers along the spines of his law books, remembering how I'd once dreamed of following in his footsteps. Now, I was here to uncover the truth he'd left behind. I started rifling through his desk drawers, searching for any clue that might shed light on our family's tangled history. In the bottom drawer, beneath a stack of old files, I found a small, ornate box. My heart raced as I lifted the lid. Inside was a letter, yellowed with age, addressed to me in Dad's familiar handwriting. With trembling hands, I unfolded it and began to read. My dearest Grace, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you've finally started asking the right questions. I've carried the weight of our family's secrets for too long, and it's time you knew the truth. Lydia has always struggled with feeling second best. I fear her resentment will one day pull you and her apart, but the roots of her anger go deeper than you know. The truth is, Lydia isn't your half-sister. She's your full sister, born from an affair your mother had early in our marriage. I chose to raise her as my own, but the strain of this secret tore our family apart. Your mother's guilt, my resentment, and Lydia's constant feeling of not belonging, it all stems from this. I've tried to compensate by favoring you, Grace, but I see now that I've only made things worse. I'm sorry for the burden this knowledge will place on you, but you've always been the strong one, the peacemaker. I hope that with this truth, You can find a way to heal our family's wounds. Forgive us, Grace, and help Lydia find her place in this world. With all my love, Dad. I sat back, stunned. The letter slipped from my fingers, floating to the floor like a fallen leaf. Everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself, had just been turned upside down. Suddenly, Lydia's lifelong resentment made sense. Her desperate attempts to win Mom's approval, her jealousy of my relationship with Dad, it all clicked into place. Grace? Lydia's voice startled me. She stood in the doorway, her eyes widening as she took in the scene. What are you doing in here? I couldn't speak. I simply handed her the letter, watching as the color drained from her face as she read. Is this true? She whispered, looking up at me with tears in her eyes. I nodded, my own vision blurring. It explains so much, doesn't it? Lydia sank to the floor, the letter clutched to her chest. All these years, I thought I was the outsider, the unwanted one, but I was just lost. I moved to sit beside her, tentatively putting an arm around her shoulders. For the first time in years, she didn't pull away. We've both been lost, Lydia, I said softly. Maybe it's time we found our way back to each other. She looked at me, a mix of hope and fear in her eyes. How can you even look at me after everything I've done? I took a deep breath, weighing my next words carefully. Because you're my sister, my full sister, and it's time we stopped letting the past define us. Lydia nodded, wiping her eyes. What do we do now? I stood up, offering her my hand. First we talk to Mom, then we figure out how to save the house and get you both the help you need. Together. As Lydia took my hand, I felt a shift in the air between us. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with painful conversations and hard truths. But for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. We walked out of the study side by side, ready to face our mother and the future, whatever it might hold. The web of lies that had entangled our family for so long was finally beginning to unravel. It was up to us now to weave something new from the threads that remained. The tension in the air was palpable as we gathered around the dining table that evening. Mom had insisted on a family dinner, a futile attempt at normalcy amidst the chaos of our lives. Peter had excused himself, sensing the impending storm. I clutched Dad's letter in my pocket, its weight a constant reminder of the truth I now carried. Lydia sat across from me, her eyes darting nervously between Mom and me. She knew what was coming. Before we eat, I began, my voice steadier than I felt, there's something we need to discuss. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Grace, please, can't we just have one peaceful meal? No, Mom, we can't keep burying the truth. It's time we faced it head on. I pulled out the letter, smoothing it on the table. I found this in Dad's study. It explains everything. As I read the letter aloud, the color drained from Mom's face. Lydia's hands trembled, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of the table. When I finished, the silence was deafening. Then Mom broke down, years of guilt pouring out in heaving sobs. I'm so sorry, she wept. I never meant for any of this to happen. I thought I was protecting you both. Lydia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Protecting us? You've been lying to us our entire lives. I reached out to her, but she recoiled. Lydia, please, we can work through this together. Her laugh was bitter, tinged with hysteria. Together? All these years, and you still couldn't be happy for me. You had everything, Dad's love, Mom's attention, success in your career. What did I have? Scraps. That's not true, I protested, but the words felt hollow even to me. Isn't it? Lydia's eyes blazed with a mixture of pain and fury. You were always the golden child, Grace. Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect fiancé. And what was I? The family disappointment. Mom tried to interject, but Lydia silenced her with a glare. Don't. You don't get to play the victim here. You're the one who started all of this with your affair. I stood, trying to defuse the situation. Lydia, I know you're hurt, but... Hurt? She scoffed. I'm way past hurt, Grace. I'm done. Done with this family. Done with your condescension. Done with living in your shadow. She stormed towards the door, but I couldn't let her leave like this. I grabbed her arm, and suddenly, years of pent-up rage exploded. Lydia whirled around, her hand connecting with my cheek in a resounding slap. The shock of it sent me stumbling backward. Mom screamed, rushing to my side, but I barely heard her. All I could focus on was Lydia's face, contorted with a mixture of satisfaction and horror at what she'd done. Lydia, I whispered, my cheek stinging, What have we become? For a moment I saw a flicker of the sister I once knew in her eyes. Then it vanished, replaced by cold determination. I'll tell you what I've become, she said, her voice low and dangerous. I've become someone who's done playing by your rules. You think you can swoop in and fix everything with your perfect Grace Granger touch? Well, you can't fix this. She reached into her purse, pulling out a stack of papers. You see these? This is my plan to take over Dad's company. The company you never cared about, but that I've been working my ass off in for years. And now, it's going to be mine. I stared at her, stunned. What are you talking about? Lydia's smile was cruel. Oh, sister dear, did you really think I was just sitting around feeling sorry for myself all these years? I've been planning, waiting for the right moment. And now, thanks to your little revelation, I have everything I need to discredit you and take what's rightfully mine. Mom gasped, Lydia, you can't be serious. Watch me, Lydia snarled, heading for the door. It's time I made my own light instead of living in Grace's shadow. As the door slammed behind her, I sank to my knees, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I had thought the truth would heal us, but instead, it had torn us apart in ways I never imagined possible. Mom's hand on my shoulder felt like a lead weight. Grace, what are we going to do? I looked up at her, feeling more lost than I ever had in my life. I don't know, Mom. I really don't know. The morning after Lydia's explosive revelation, I woke to a flurry of missed calls and urgent messages. My head pounded as I scrolled through them, each one more alarming than the last. Lydia had wasted no time in setting her plan in motion. I rushed to the family company's headquarters, my stomach churning with dread. As I stepped into the lobby, all eyes turned to me. Whispers followed in my wake, and I caught snippets of conversation that made my blood run cold. Did you hear? Grace Granger's been embezzling. I always knew there was something off about her. I pushed past them, heading straight for the boardroom. As I burst through the doors, I found Lydia holding court, surrounded by the board members. Her eyes gleamed with triumph as she saw me. Ah, Grace, how kind of you to join us, she purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. We were just discussing your creative accounting practices. I felt the blood drain from my face. What are you talking about? Lydia smiled, sliding a stack of documents across the table. These financial records show some very interesting transfers from the company accounts to your personal ones. Care to explain? I leafed through the papers, my hands shaking. The numbers were all wrong, doctored to make it look like I'd been siphoning funds for years. This is impossible. I've never. Oh, come now, Grace, Lydia interrupted. We all know how hard you've worked. Is it so surprising that you'd want to ensure your own financial security? The board members murmured among themselves, their faces a mix of disappointment and anger. I looked to Mr. Jameson, Dad's old friend and my longtime mentor on the board. His eyes were filled with sadness as he shook his head. Grace, I'm sorry, but given the evidence, we have no choice but to suspend you pending a full investigation. The room spun around me. This couldn't be happening. You can't seriously believe this. Lydia, tell them the truth. Lydia's face hardened. I am telling the truth, Grace. For once in your life, you're not going to be able to talk your way out of this. As security escorted me from the building, I saw Mom waiting in the parking lot, her face etched with worry. Grace, what's happening? Lydia called, said something about you being in trouble. I couldn't bring myself to explain. Instead, I collapsed into her arms, sobbing like I hadn't since I was a child. Mom held me tight, stroking my hair. Oh, my sweet girl, she whispered. What have we done to each other? Back at home, I paced the living room, my mind racing. Peter arrived, his face grim as I filled him in on Lydia's machinations. We need to fight this, Grace, he insisted. There must be a way to prove your innocence. I shook my head, feeling defeated. How? Lydia's had years to plan this. She knows all our weaknesses, all our secrets. She's always been in my shadow, and now she's found a way to make her own light, by extinguishing mine. Mom, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. No, Grace, you can't give up. You're stronger than this, stronger than Lydia, stronger than me. You've always been the one to hold this family together. Her words sparked something in me, a flicker of the fire I'd thought Lydia had extinguished. I stood straighter, my resolve hardening. You're right, Mom. I've spent my whole life trying to be perfect, to make everyone happy. But now? Now it's time to fight fire with fire. I turned to Peter, a plan forming in my mind. I need your help. We're going to dig into every corner of this company, every decision Lydia's made. If she wants to play dirty, she's about to learn that two can play at that game. As I spoke, I felt a shift within me. The old Grace, the peacemaker, the perfect daughter, was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone forged in the crucible of betrayal and deceit. Lydia thought she'd won, that she'd finally stepped out of my shadow. But she was about to learn a harsh truth. Sometimes it's the shadows you need to fear the most. I picked up my phone, my fingers flying over the keys as I started to put my plan into action. Lydia, you've chosen darkness over and over again. Now it's time you learned what real darkness looks like. As I hit send on the message, I felt a chill run down my spine. There was no going back now. The final showdown was about to begin, and only one of us would emerge victorious. The boardroom fell silent as I strode in, my heels echoing on the polished floor. Lydia's smug smile faltered as she saw the determination in my eyes. I'd spent the last week gathering evidence, calling in favors, and preparing for this moment. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I began, my voice steady. I'm here to set the record straight. I laid out the truth, piece by damning piece. The doctored financial records Lydia had presented, I'd traced them back to her own computer. The supposed embezzlement, a clever manipulation of numbers that, when unraveled, revealed Lydia's own misappropriation of funds. As I spoke, I watched the color drain from Lydia's face. The board members leaned in, their expressions shifting from skepticism to shock. But why? Mr. Jameson asked, his voice heavy with disappointment. Lydia, why would you do this? Lydia's composure cracked. Because I deserved it, she screamed, her eyes wild. I've worked just as hard as Grace, but she always got the praise, the recognition. It was my turn. In that moment, I saw my sister for who she truly was, a wound-desperate woman who'd let her resentment consume her. Part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort her as I had when we were children, but I knew we were past that now. Lydia, I said softly, you've chosen darkness over and over again, but it didn't have to be this way. We could have built something together, supported each other. She laughed bitterly. Always the perfect sister, aren't you, Grace? Even now, you think you can fix everything. No, I replied, shaking my head. I can't fix this, but I can move forward. I turned to the board. I'm stepping down from my position in the company. It's time for me to start a new chapter. Gasps filled the room. Mr. Jameson stood, protesting. Grace, you can't leave. The company needs you. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. The company will be fine. It's time I wrote my own story. As I walked out of the boardroom, leaving behind the shocked faces and Lydia's defeated form, I felt a sense of liberation I hadn't experienced in years. Mom was waiting for me in the lobby, her eyes questioning. It's done, I told her. I've cleared my name, but I'm leaving the company. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Where will you go? I took a deep breath, realizing I hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know yet, but for the first time in my life, that uncertainty doesn't terrify me. Mom squeezed my hand. Maybe this time you'll write your own story without the weight of our family's expectations. As we stepped out into the sunlight, I saw Peter waiting by his car. He'd been my rock through this ordeal, and I felt a flutter in my chest as our eyes met. Ready for a new adventure? He asked, a smile playing on his lips. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. More than ready. As we drove away from the building that had been the center of my world for so long, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The betrayals, the lies, the pain, they had all shaped me, but they didn't define me. I thought of Lydia, hoping that one day she might find peace. I thought of Trevor, grateful that his betrayal had freed me from a life that wasn't truly mine. And I thought of Dad, wishing he could see the strength I'd found in myself. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time I was excited about the possibilities. I'd spent so long trying to be the perfect daughter, sister, and fiancé that I'd lost sight of who I really was. Now, as the city faded in the rearview mirror, I felt like I was finally coming home to myself. The web of lies that had entangled my family for so long was broken, and in its place I was weaving a new tapestry, one of honesty, self-discovery, and hope. So, Peter asked, glancing at me, where to? I smiled, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face and the promise of a new beginning in my heart. Anywhere, I replied, as long as it's forward. As we drove into the unknown, I realized that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go of expectations, of resentments, of the past itself. And in that letting go, we find the strength to begin again. The road stretched out before us, full of possibilities. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to embrace them all.